Good morning, and welcome to the Terry Leadership Speaker Series. My name is Shoit Lina, and I'm an ILA Leadership Fellow studying Management Information Systems. The Institute for Leadership Advancement is an undergraduate certificate program that develops value-based, impact-driven leaders. ILA instills leadership capabilities, promotes self-development, and improves teamwork, communication, innovation, and adaptability in an ever-changing global environment. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Mr. James Jackson, a former regional president and senior executive in financial services. Most recently, he served as executive vice president at Experian. He was responsible for leading and growing business relationships throughout North America. These relationships represented approximately $1 billion, about half of the North American revenue. Mr. Jackson received a bachelor's degree in accounting from the Terry College of Business, go Dogs, and an MBA from UNC Chapel Hill. He currently serves as a member of the UGA Board of Visitors and is a founding and current board chair of the Park Community Development Corporation, focused on affordable housing, workforce development, and healthy living. He's also an active member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Personally, I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Jackson last semester. He shared his story and encouraged introspection in our small group discussion. He's also very charismatic. It was evident that he cared for people and listened to every perspective as if it were fresh to his ears. He has a strong commitment to instilling value-based principles in generations to come. And now will you all please join me in welcoming Mr. James Jackson.
Good job. The house filled up here, so this is good. Hey, before we get started, I just wanted to honor someone. That someone is my mother. So when we planned this, my mother was sick, and about a year ago, Monday actually, is when she passed away. And I don't say that in a sorrowful way, although I miss her. I say it as a way of gratitude, because a lot of what you will hear from me, and to some extent the essence of who I am, is from my mother. You see the cute little baby that she's holding, right? Well, that's me. So that was the start with my brother and sister, and we grew up in Savannah, Georgia, in a housing project. So we grew up poor. I didn't know we were poor because we were full of love and gratitude and that type of thing. So I don't want to dwell on it, but to have a moment like this, to me, was a moment to honor, sort of the root cause of it, which would be the values instilled in me by my mother and lived by me and my brother and sister. So just wanted to open it up that way and tell you how honored I am to have this honor to be in front of you, and to also combine it as an honor for my mother. Fair deal? All right, well, let's get started.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Jackson, and good morning, everyone. My name is Samira Parsa, and I'm an ILA Fellow studying Risk Management and Insurance. And thank you so much for being here. It's really an honor and a pleasure to have you with us today.
It's my pleasure.
And welcome back to UGA. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs. It's always good to be here.
Well, looking back on your college career here at UGA, can you think of maybe a moment or a period of time that's worked to shape your perspective of the world today?
So, I guess I would say, when I got here, my mother would say all the time that you're a good business person, you handle your money well, and you save and you do the right thing there. And so I always felt like I wanted to do business, as a result of that. And then when I got here, the business general curriculum was good. but I felt like I was missing something. And that something was this love of math. And so I decided to go into accounting. Now, who does that, right? That's a little. But the way I was thinking was accounting is recession proof. In other words, people need accountants in good times and bad times. So to some extent, because of how we grew up and not really having a lot of financial resources, I felt that there would always be a job as an accountant. And so that was one of the big points for me. The second thing that shaped me when I was here was, quite frankly, feedback that I got on my mastery of English and writing and those types of things. That I did the math great, but I struggled with the English and writing, and I didn't know coming from high school that I was struggling with that. I only found out the struggle when I got here. So I felt a little bit like a victim, to tell you the truth, like somebody was picking on me. And so instead of being a victim, I decided that my goal was to master that part along with the math. And so that allowed me to do great in English as well as the business courses. And when I went to MBA school, we did a lot of papers. And because I decided, to invest in learning as opposed to playing the victim, I became faster, stronger, better. And those were two parts, that I carry with me today. I'm very prideful of, how I write and communicate. And I'm a proud accountant too.
Well, that's great. And you've talked about your mother, and you've touched on just how much of an influence she's had on your life, which is amazing. How do you think that, your mother's influence has shaped your view of mentorship, which is something that is so vital and influential for many people's life?
So I tell you, I just think mentoring and to some extent giving back through sharing your knowledge is the essence of how you, quite frankly, create a legacy over time. My mother mentored anybody who wanted to be mentored. When I was at the bank, I was, known as a mentor extraordinaire because I was never too busy to mentor. And I guess it goes back to and to some extent, her version of theory of abundancy versus theory of scarcity. Some people feel that if I have mine and you don't have yours, if I keep mine and you don't have yours, I have an advantage. But the truth of the matter is, if you have yours and you share it with someone else, it multiplies. And so I have this theory of abundancy that, anything that I know, I'm willing to share it because it's going to help somebody else grow, and hopefully that person will help somebody else grow, and therefore the entire village gets stronger. Because it's kind of ridiculous to feel that for me to be on top, you have to be under. It's a ridiculous notion when you think about it, because the world is so big, opportunities are so great. So why not share your knowledge? And I follow that philosophy. I surround myself with people who are willing to tell me the truth even when I don't want to hear it. And those are the best, mentors you can have. They don't worry about the political part, but they worry about how can I help you be better at whatever you're trying to do. So it's the essence of who I am, ultimately.
I wish everyone had that mentality.
Well, why don't everybody have that mentality? There's absolutely enough for everybody. And if you believe there is not, then that probably requires some self-reflection of why you think that. For me to have mine, I don't have to get it from you. We can go find enough for both of us.
Would you say that you have a mentor today?
Oh, I keep mentors. It's really interesting. I get the honor to, sit here and hopefully say something to you that's valuable, because, one thing would be enough for me. But I never, ever think it's about me, and I'm always being mentored, and I'm always mentoring. My wife is probably my biggest mentor. Because I think ultimately what you want is somebody who's willing to tell you the truth even when you don't want to hear it, as opposed to surrounding yourself with people who will tell you what you want to hear, because. And so I think it's very, very critical to have that. I have a friend that I work with at the bank. He's a little older than me, and he's very knowledgeable, wise. He mentors me. I have a nephew who is in another college right now, and he's just wise, and he gives me advice, about what's happening today and how that's different from yesterday, and how you bridge all of that. And so I ultimately believe in the village, concept. It takes a village to essentially raise a child. And so if the child is getting knowledge and learning, you just have to have a village and have multiple mentors, which I do today as well.
Well, that's great. And you've had many different roles throughout your professional life, and you've done many different things in the business world. And I know, at least for me right now, that's a very daunting idea, because I know that myself and a lot of others included kind of get stuck in one mind frame.
Yeah.
So how do you strive to avoid complacency in your life and in your career?
Well, change. See, I love change. So let's just deal with what change really is. Because I don't remember ever being complacent, because I never believed the job is finished. There's always, continuous improvement opportunities. But when big change happens, I flourish, because when you get into a situation, whether it's a company or a class or a circle of friends, things are already established. So you sort of plug yourself in. But when things change, everything starts over. And if everything starts over and you believe all the stuff you believe about yourself, you can do stuff and be good and all of that, then you get a chance to prove it, and everybody else has to prove it at the same time. And so when change happens, shift. I said that right. I said shift. Shift happens when change happens. And when change happens, it's really an opportunity to reset and really show what you're made of. And so instead of fearing change or getting complacent, those types of things, I say embrace it. It allows you to shine, to show what you're capable of doing. It resets, so those who had advantages or disadvantages prior no longer have those, and then you're at the start line with everyone else, and then you're capable then of showing what you're able to do, as you navigate. Yeah.
That's great. Well, change can definitely fluster a lot of people.
Yes.
And definitely put you in a position where you're working with multitudes of different people.
Yeah. And it's fearful somewhat if you mentally let it be fear, as opposed to, this is my opportunity to take my shot. And so I always saw, even with all of the changes, opportunities to take the shot and never feeling complacent. So even when something's working, there's always room to improve it.
Right. So it's never done.
It's never done. And it's fun. That's the key. If you fear it, you hurt yourself. If you embrace it, anything is possible, I think.
That's great. Well, with that, would you say that you've ever found yourself maybe having a difference of opinion from that of your colleague about like a business process or something within a business operation that you've had to navigate around?
That happens a lot, huh? I would say so. I think one example is, when I used to run a lot of branches for Bank of America. I had 1,500 branches. And so lots of tellers, mostly. I know we don't use branches much anymore. But the role of the teller was a critical issue, because they're there to deal with the money, but we also wanted them to sell too. And so if you put too much of a selling burden on someone who's there to provide customer service, then you can get out of balance with the wait time and customer complaints. And so just balancing do we want everybody to sell, or is there a division of sales and service? And so we had lots of debates about how to, run the staff, what roles do we put under them, how do we compensate them? And, at the end of the day, I think your goal is to be heard and have the ability to lay out your point of view and not personalize it or make it an ego thing if you get your way or don't get your way. To me, the issue is, did I lay out my case? Did I do it really well? Was I convincing? And with all of that, if the decision goes another way, then you take your ego out and then you re-engage, and then whatever the decision is, you make it right. Because there's an issue of making the right decision, which you deal with on the front end, and then there's the issue of making the decision right. So once the decision is made and you're in the game, your goal becomes not to worry about the fact that you didn't get your way, but to take the way that's going and blow it out of the park and show, again, what you're capable of in terms of leadership and ability to execute and to not get stuck in one way or the other. So I think it takes a lot of flexibility, not a lot of ego. That's one of the things my mother taught. Very low ego, but very high self-esteem. In other words, if you believe anything is possible and you act that way and you're confident, and even if somebody takes a shot at you or you disagree or whatever the situation is, you don't give that power. You keep your power. You keep your power. You didn't win this one, and so let's show that that once the decision's made, you can do it as well or better than anybody. And so I think that part of high self-esteem and low ego, is a deadly combination in terms of how to run your life and how to get into jobs and how to move through jobs and how to deal with conflict and not personalize it. Because the fact is, everything is not about, the individual. Everything is not about me. If I didn't get my way, I move on and do the best that I can.
So when you talk about those moments where you really want to hit it out of the ballpark and really show what you're made of, do you think that those are moments that are easy to come to you, or do you need to go out and find those moments yourself so that you can show what you're made of?
So I think the moments are always there, really. Sometimes they're episodic, they're, big moments, but sometimes they're just, kind of day to day. How do you do this thing? How do you show up? I guess as a leader, I never felt, and this is going to sound a little strange, but I never felt that I could be in a bad mood. So let's say, there's a problem with a sibling or a child or a spouse or what have you. I can't walk in the door and have that show up in me when people are waiting for me to help lead. And so if I'm, don't talk to James between 9 and 11 because he's going to be in a bad mood, who wants to deal with you? Really. And so I thought my job, and it's a little bit of this issue of servant leadership, that a leader is there to serve and not to, be all that. And if you believe that a leader is a servant ultimately to the, quote, followers, then the only thing that you can do as a leader is to show up consistently. So it doesn't matter if you had a bad day, bad mood, etc., that you're going to be there for the person who's standing in front of you because they need you to be their leader. So it takes a lot of discipline, I think, to not make it about you. But I tell you, I found in my experiences in leadership, the more people believe you believe in them, the more they would give you. I call it discretionary effort. It's the difference between doing just enough to get by and your very best. It's all of that in the middle. And the way to tap into that middle is on how you show up. How consistent are you? Are you there for me? Do you listen to my concerns? Do you try to help me? Or is it always about me, me, me? I need to hit this number, I need for you to do this, I need for you. Well, what are you doing for me? Sort of becomes the question. How are you helping me grow and advance? And so I think a big part of the equation is you have to really be consistent and fully present and make it about, the quote, followers, as opposed to making about the person who is deemed the leader. Because a leader doesn't mean you're king or queen.
Right, and it's great that you talk about servant leadership, actually. It's very apt because in ILA, that's definitely something that we're actually talking about right now.
Really?
Is servant leadership. And within ILA, we kind of have 5 core values, and they're responsibility, stewardship, excellence, purpose, and integrity. And so what values do you think, I know you've already talked a little bit about some things that you carry with you, but what values do you think in your personal and professional life do you try to hold on to within you?
Well, ultimately, I think leadership is about fellowship. And so fellowship is really about best interests. Do you have my best interests at heart? And so the servant leader knows that he or she is there to help make others better. And so having low ego and high self-esteem, I think is the winning combination to create an environment where people want to come in and do their very best, because they feel that you have their best interests at heart. And so that's really what I value and how I, conduct my leadership in my personal life with friends and mentees and mentors as well.
Do you find that these values often get tested? And if they do, how do you handle that? What do you do about that?
Well, people bring their whole selves to work. And when you bring your whole self, you bring your functional self and your dysfunctional self, I guess is what it ends up being. You bring, you bring all your stuff. You bring all your stuff. If you bring all your stuff and you apply it to, what I'm saying, you may reject this. You may reject, I don't want that. I want it to be ABC. I don't like X, Y, Z. And so therefore, I'm not going to participate in this, kumbaya. We all get together. We take the hill, all of that. And so I think when that happens, and the way you're trying to do it is it gets rejected, then you deal with that rejection. In other words, some people weed themselves out, because they don't want to be a part of whatever the thing is you're creating. And then others need to be weeded out, because they're bringing some things that, regardless of what you do, it will not get accepted. And so I think surrounding yourself with people, who value similar things, not in terms of exactly, this is because you want diverse thinking, et cetera, but you don't want dysfunction. And I would say you always seek to knock dysfunction, out of the culture so that the best of the culture, can live on.
That's great. And you, like we mentioned before, you have worn many hats, and you've moved from credit analyst to vice president of executive for sales to senior financial services executive. And when moving through all these different roles and functions, did you find that your leadership style has changed?
I would say yes. Growing up, my mother would always say, you're a people person. You're really, really good with people. And I take that to heart. And so my go-to is to coach people up. My go-to is if I'm working with someone and they're, average or below average, I think there's a way to make them better and coach them up and be a part of the team, is usually what I think. And so I think early on, I held on to people too long because my core belief is, I can help you if you want to be helped. And even if the answer is I want to be helped, there may be some passive resistance and really don't want to be helped. And it takes me a long time to see that. And so the biggest thing that I've had to learn is kind of when to hold them and when to fold them, basically, respectfully. Because if you spend all of your time on your project person, you're in essence ignoring the people who are actually getting the job done and doing really well. And so I think it's incumbent on the leader to be honest with people and honest with him or herself, that when somebody can't make it, I've learned you have to make the call early. And if you make the call early, the fact is they're struggling too, and they don't want to be there. And so I've found when I've had to essentially fire people, some of them have come back to thank me because they were miserable in what they were doing, and that's why they were giving, poor performance. And so by my having the courage as a leader and growing to confront that in a different way, I'm able to do a better job of surrounding myself with top-notch people who, want to be on the bus and take the charge together. So managing people and knowing when to hold them and fold them, I think is a thing that you continuously grow in. But it's so important to surround yourself with the absolute best people.
Is this something that you've kind of recognized early on in your leadership career, or is this something that you've learned slowly over time?
Slowly over time. Because my go-to is the care and support of others. That's the fabric, basically. I have high self-esteem, like I mentioned, with low ego. So with that combination, I just believe that if we can work this thing out together. And so it's a slow process for me, because I always believe in people and their abilities, and if you create the right environment, that good things will happen. But the fact is that assumption is not as true as I would like it to be. So I have a little bit of a rosy glass relative to, how do you deal with the people and how long do you hold on coaching and developing when the right answer is you need to cut it and then let everybody become more happy in a different environment.
No, well, it's great that you have a positive outlook. It's very easy to get cynical.
Yes.
So I think it's great that you have that outlook still now, even too.
Yeah. No, I truly believe in people. I think there's something good in each of us. And I think the opportunity is to find that space where you feel the best about yourself and what you're doing. I don't think it's about the money. I don't think it's about the job title. I don't think it's about, necessarily pleasing the parents. And the issue is, what gets you motivated and wanting to do your very best. And whatever the answer is to that, go do that, as opposed to doing the things that somebody told you should do. Because. It may not be your own because. And so I think that one of the keys to the mystery of life is, to have joy in everything you do. And as much joy as you can find in this notion of work, it's work by definition. But there are environments that you put yourselves in where it's really work and it's stressful, or it's really work and it's hard, but you still, enjoy it because it's part of who you are. And so I think making decisions like that, to put yourself in a position where this is me and I'm flourishing because I feel good about myself, is probably the biggest gift you can give to yourself as you think about where you fit in.
Cool, thank you. And would you say that where you are as a senior executive now, looking back to the road that led up to here, was it kind of one defining moment for you, or would you say that it was a lot of little moments that accumulated into the path that led you to where you are today?
I would say there are more little moments that accumulated. There's one time, though, when I worked in Florida, and I was asked to come to Florida to do one job. I left one division went to another division, was doing well in this new division, and where I left, came back and said, I can get you back to Charlotte where I know you want to be. I can get you back into this organization, at a higher level, all of that. But I felt like in this moment, I made a promise to the person in Florida that I will do a job. And the fact that the person who let me go was coming back to say, I can give you more money and I can get you back to Charlotte where I know your wife wants to be. And to do it at the time where they knew I left, when they could have done it before, quite frankly, they could have done it before. But they didn't. They chose to do it when I made another decision. And although the money was tempting and the ability to fulfill something that I promised was there, to me it was an integrity issue. Because if I made a promise that I'm going to go do this and then the grass is green somewhere else, and then I essentially say I changed my mind, what does that do to your reputation? That means the next time somebody's counting on you, you may change your mind again. So in that moment, I decided that I wouldn't chase the money, I wouldn't chase the getting back to Charlotte. There has to be another path. My wife and I really talked this through, and we said we made this promise to Gene Taylor, who's one of my mentors, and we went back to him. He thought we were leaving because he thought we would take the easy route. And I said, Gene, we're not going to go back to Charlotte. Made a promise to you. We're going to finish it. And at that moment, he became one of my biggest advocates and mentors, because in the moment of truth, I came through with integrity. And that's why I think integrity, is so core to what, who we are and what we need to be. So that was one of the moments that really changed a lot for me, because now I had another mentor who was at a level where he could influence others, because my boss reported to him eventually. And so having those types of relationships, because people see that you're consistent in what you do and how you do it and your beliefs, I think that consistency that shows up in every example is how you have breakthrough. Is one way to have breakthrough.
And that's a really great story, because I think within everyone's life, there are moments where we're faced with different choices.
Yes.
And I think there's always a moment where we don't know maybe what the right choice is in that time. And I know for me, I've always been upset that I couldn't tell the future and just knew where I'm going to be and then decide from there.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
So,
and write about it and sell it somewhere.
Yes, if only. So when you're navigating an uncertain future, how do you navigate all the potential choices you have when you're faced with the unknown of the future?
Well, so the question, to me, part of the question is there an optimal choice, really? Given 5 different choices, is one truly as great as the others if you're still struggling with it? Because if you're still struggling with it, then it may not be an issue of making the right choice. It may be an issue of making the choice right. And so when faced with a multitude of options and you pick one, even if you're not sure if it's, quote, the right one or the optimal one, if you pick one and you deliver on that one, you pick it, you commit it to it, you make it right. If you make the decision right, then the rest will take care of itself. Just like job offers. Somebody offers you, 2 or 3, different jobs. I mean, even in my example, when I decided to join the bank, I decided to join a culture because I saw something that I thought aligned with the way I was. Now, it wasn't exactly what I thought, but when I got there, it was most of what I thought. And so it was a ground where I could flourish and where over time I may be able to influence the parts of the culture that I didn't like. But to me, the goal at that point was, once I'm in, to give it my very best and do my very best, be consistent on that. And so I think ultimately when faced with different choices, pick one. And after you pick it, do it well.
That's really good to hear, because it means that you have control in what you do,
Yeah.
and it's not up to the choice that you picked.
Nobody. It's up to you. It's kind of what's inside as opposed to all this other stuff. The other stuff to me is just noise, quite frankly. If you are grounded in your own self-esteem and believe that you're as good as you say you are, and then you sweat whether or not I'm making the right choice, then you're inconsistent in what you're saying. Because if you really believe that you're as good as you are as people are telling you, and you're kind of wimpy about, which one, when nothing's bad in what you do, just pick it, and then do it. And then do your very best. And if it doesn't work out, you'll be faced with other choices, and just pick it. And then you pick it, and then you do your very best, and you keep moving on. But I mean, there's no need to give away your power, really. Because your power is, what you bring to the table and who you are and what your values are and what you have to contribute. And if someone loves it, that's great. If they don't love it, that's fine. You can deal with it, they can deal with it. And then you keep being your very best. And so I just think the issue of, having confidence and self-esteem in yourself, as a leader or as a follower or as a business person or as not, to me the issue gets to be the same. Don't give away your power. Keep your self-esteem. Do the very best that you can. Don't try to eat the whole elephant. Just take it a bite at a time and just do your best in every moment, and the rest will take care of itself. And I'm a living testimony to that.
That's great. Just pick it can be your trademark.
Just pick it. Just pick it. I like that. I got a tagline.
Well, you may have a lot of different answers for this next question, but is there a moment looking back that you are the most proud of?
Wow. That I'm the most proud of. This may sound a little strange, but I spent a long time at Bank of America. And I don't even know if that's the right model anymore. I spent, 20 some odd years there. And the culture changed. The culture changed. And when the culture changed, it was no longer a fit. I didn't really feel like I belonged. I could have stayed longer and done more things and, all of that. But I joined the culture, and the culture was not there. And so in the moment, I was offered a role to go to Capital One. It's a big job to lead their retail. But I went on a relationship because the person who hired me, I worked with at the Bank of America, and knew my reputation. And so I decided to do something that I thought I would never do, which was to leave the company that I thought I would work for forever. But then I realized that was a dumb idea. And then once I realized it was a dumb idea, I then decided to jump into this new thing. And by jumping into this new thing, I grew as a leader. I was in unfamiliar grounds. I was no longer the James Jackson that everybody knew and, mentored or got mentored by or what have you. It was really starting all over. So it tested me, and it helped me to grow, and it taught me the value of relationships because, again, the person I went to work with, had trust and confidence in me. And so I think in that moment, it allowed me to gain more confidence in my ability to start over and do more things. And, then I did it again and went to Experian to get into data management and software and big data and all business customers. And that was different from a lot of what I did. And so those moments helped to define and change me and add more dimensions. Sort of got out of the normal comfort zone and went into learning new things and creating new cultures.
Okay. Well, lots of change.
Lots of change.
That's fantastic.
Change is good, man. Change is good.
Well, thank you so much.
You did a great job, too. I'm very proud of you.
So did you.
You do a great job.
Thank you.
She said she was nervous. I didn't see that, did you? Not at all.
You helped ease it a lot.
You did great, too, by the way. I don't know if I said that.
Well, I know that you have a few words that you'd like to share about leadership characteristics and a few people who have influenced your life. If you'd like to take some time now to do that.
Yeah, thank you for that. I showed you my mother earlier because I just wanted to, honor her. when I was asked to do this, it caused me to sort of think about who I was and how I learned leadership. And I just wanted to tell you about a man, who I adore. Because coming out of college, in the early 80s, I'm just a black kid from, Yamacraw Village in Savannah. And I got the honor to go here, and then I got the honor to go to get an MBA. And then I met this man who was on this mission to create a bank, a banking giant. His name is Hugh McCall, and he was my CEO at Bank of America for a long time. But the big thing that Mr. McCall, and I just do that out of respect, call him Mr. McCall, the thing that he said I loved and that I just want to share with you is he created a set of values around the culture he wanted to create, and everybody has values. But he included this thing called inclusive meritocracy. Inclusive meritocracy. Now, what the heck is an inclusive meritocracy? It was the notion that I don't care who your people are, where you grew up, what your religion is, your sexual preference, your sex, your religion. No value placed to any of those things, i.e. inclusive. And then the notion that if you do a great job, you will be rewarded for that based on the sheer merit. Inclusive meritocracy. So this young kid from Savannah, Georgia had an opportunity to go to a company, that said they believed this. And so as you know, I believe best players play. I love change. Everything starts over. And Mr. McCall really taught me a lot about leadership and how you create a culture and how you show up and how consistent you are. And I wanted to flash this picture of him because he's a Marine, and he used to give out these crystal grenades. It was the highest honor that you could have, under Mr. McCall. And so I one year, after leading Florida, sort of back to profitability because we bought Barnett Bank, which was the biggest bank in Florida, and we sort of screwed it up because we went to buy Bank of America out of California, stole the name, and moved the headquarters to Charlotte, and all of that was going on, and I was asked to go fix Florida, and he trusted me to do that, and I did it, and then on our scorecard and all of that, we got to go from last to first, and then we said, well, that may be a hiccup. Let's see if we can do it again. And so we did it again, and then we did it a third time. And this notion of creating dynasties through people that you care about and you treat them right and they give their discretionary effort. So all of that I learned under Mr. McCall, and I just love this notion of inclusive meritocracy. So if you ever, get in a culture, make sure that's there. That they don't care about your background or your people and all of that other stuff. They only care whether or not you can come in and do a good job and do it consistently and be your best self. So that would be the first point. And then the next one that I wanted to share with you real quickly is the lovely lady I got to marry. So, I had really nice girlfriends here at Georgia too, but then I went to Chapel Hill, and not only did I get an MBA, but I got an MRS. I met my wife there. And, to a great extent, she's the crown jewel. So the thing about Nina is she always tells the truth. And sometimes, man, sometimes you just want a little sympathy. So I just want to tell this story of how she supports me. And I support her in other ways too, but I just want to tell you about this. Because we were in Florida, around the same time, and I got a new boss, and it looked like she was picking on me. I was just kind of, why is she asking me these questions? Doesn't she know I know what I'm doing? I felt like I'm James Action Jackson, y'all. But, and so my wife and I were living in Fort Lauderdale, and we're walking down the beach, and, we're having this conversation. I said, Nine, I just don't know. I think Kathy was my boss. I think she's lost confidence in me. And then we're walking, and she stops. And I said, why are you stopping? She said, well, what do you mean she's lost confidence in you? do you have confidence in yourself? I said, well, wait a minute, you don't understand. The issue is, did she lose confidence in me? And so her point was, that is irrelevant. The fact is, if you think you're all that, and you say you can do all of this, and then now you're essentially whining about whether or not somebody has confidence in you, I think that we have identified the problem. So I said, wait, well, okay, well, you might have a point there. And so Nina is not only a great, spouse and life partner, she's the type of person that you want to have around you. It doesn't have to be in a spouse, but somebody, who always tells you the truth, even when you don't want to hear it. And that thing, I was really a victim that day. And then I had to think about it and grow up, and that was another turning moment, actually, because I went back into work. I've gotten off of this, woe is me, somebody's picking on me crap. And then I went and said, well, if I can do it, then do it. And then back to the 3 years in a row, top in class. That was the ultimate outcome. But I did want to tell you about Nina and just having people around you who care about you. And the best way someone can care about you is to tell you the truth all the time, and for you to be big enough, even if you have a little pity party, to come back and say that you're right. So I just wanted to drop that knowledge on you real quickly. So thank you for that.
Cool. Thank you so much.
You. That's the Nina and Mr. McCall.
Thank you for dropping all that knowledge on us. There are a lot of takeaways I'm going to have to go and have written down. Just pick it is one of them.
That's right.
For sure.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. And at this time, we actually have some time for questions from the audience, if any of y'all have any questions to ask Mr. Jackson.
I'll stand up on this. Yes. Young man, what's your name?
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Dyer Whitehurst. I'm
Dyer.
a junior in the ILA Scholars Program studying finance.
Nice.
My question is, if you could frame up leadership into one word or phrase, what would that be?
Yeah, well, thank you for that question. So when you put my mama and Mr. McCall and Nina and a whole bunch of people together, I think it's trust. Actually, I would boil it down. If I had to pick a word, I would pick trust, because I believe, and the people I surround myself with believe, that leadership is fellowship. So how do you create fellowship from leadership? So to create fellowship from leadership, you then have to create an environment of what I call best interest. If you want me to follow you, then you need to have my best interest in mind. If you don't have my best interest, I don't know if I want to follow you, basically. So if leadership is about fellowship and fellowship is about best interest, that is, I trust that you have my best interest in mind. Then it becomes a trust agreement. Then there's a trust issue. So, okay, so I do have your best interest in mind, but do you have my best interest in mind? And so there's kind of a mutual contract, a trust agreement. If you do your very best, then I am going to support you and reward you, etc. And the only condition is you do your very best. And in order for me to do my very best, well, I need to know how I can get a job like yours, or how I can stay here for X years and go do something else. Or I have these family issues at home, so I'm not able to give all that I have been giving before, and I need, 6 months or a year in order to get my life back together. And so when you know what the best interest is to create the fellowship, and you respond to that best interest in a way where the leader has earned the trust, because the leader has the best interest of the, quote, follower, then you create, raving fans to some extent, that people will always follow you wherever you go, or trust that you have their best interest. So every job and every opportunity that I've gotten since leaving corporate America, well, since leaving Bank of America, actually has been on relationships. The last point I'll make is the last job I had at Experian, I went to work for a person I mentored. And the reason was because I was sitting in a session where we were evaluating talent. And this guy, he's a big black guy. He's muscular, he's tall, he's a booming voice. And he was intimidating. He would walk in a room, he would fill the room because of his size, maybe his color. And, he was really smart and he was proud of his education and what he thought. So he would lay it out and he didn't care if people liked what he said or not. And so he got this reputation for being abrasive. And so we were having a talent discussion and we were about to throw the guy out because he couldn't get along with people. And then the question of, did we coach him? The answer was no. I was a little bit scared of him. And so I said, well, I hear a lot of good things, so I'll mentor him. And so I called him into my office and I said, man, you're doing a great job with your numbers, but people don't like you. What is it about you that people don't like? He said, oh yeah, they, blah, 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 making up all these excuses. And I say, well, when you walk into a room, because you're a big, black guy, really, some people are intimidated with the presence, and you got this strong voice, and it's like you're telling everybody what to do, and I know you don't mean it, but that's the way it's coming across. And so, yeah, but, man, you're not a victim. I mean, come on, this is the reality of what you're dealing with, so we either fix it or we don't fix it. If you don't want to fix it, that's fine. But if you want to fix it, you're going to have to make some changes, so let's just talk about it. And so it was really from that moment of honesty, best interest, right? That moment of honesty, to tell him something, like my wife, stuff he didn't want to hear, because, he felt like he was right, and maybe he was. It didn't matter. The fact is, people weren't responding to him positively. And from that, he made some changes and did a great job, and then he went from there and joined Experian and, took all of what he does well and all of what he's learned and, got to be a, big president of one of the divisions there, and he needed to replace himself, and he, he hired me, so I suited back up and I went to work for him, and it was just great. And so I just think this issue of best interest and trust and telling people the truth whenever they don't want to hear it, is just a lesson to embrace. So thanks for that question, and hopefully the answer was sufficient. Yes.
Good morning, Mr. Jackson. Thank you for coming and speaking with us. There's a lot of takeaways.
Thank you.
You seem pretty adaptable to change. And my question was, is there a why that has kept you grounded and motivated? And are there any experiences that have sharpened that throughout your career or throughout your journey really in life?
Well, I think it has to do with growing up poor, actually. It's almost the issue of what do you have to lose if kind of what it is now isn't optimal for you. If change happens, does the change become more optimal for you? So the reason that I'm an embracer of change is because I think it creates this everybody starts over, and you have a better chance of doing as well as everybody else. In other words, it's not based on, old relationships or past performance, or it's really based on we start over and the best players play. And if I or whomever is as good as we think we are, it is the opportunity to excel. And so I embrace change because I think change is going to happen anyway. And if you fight it, you get left behind. But if you embrace it and you figure out how to leverage it, you're going to always be in the game. It may not get you to the optimal point. It may not do all that you want it to do. But if you, again, keep your power, don't give change the power, don't give circumstances around you the power, keep the power of knowing that you are as good as you say, and then being willing to prove it, even if it's in a situation you had an advantage, have an advantage, or want to have an advantage. But the situation is irrelevant if you can bring your very best and you know that you can do a great job and that you know that you could potentially outperform everyone else, I say, bring it. So that's why I think change is always a good thing. And the core of me is, bring it on, because I feel like if I'm as good as I say I am, then it's another opportunity to prove it all over again. Thank you for that question as well. Thank you.
On behalf of the Institute of Leadership Advancement and the Terry Leadership Speaker Series, we would like to thank Mr. Jackson for being with us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So before you all go, may I have 30 seconds? Quickly, because I do want to say one last thing. And it's really about my mother and my mother-in-law, who both passed last year. And I just want to tell you that these ladies are extraordinary. Neither one, went to college. They all focus on family, community, friends. They were in their community. They both had funerals that we call homegoing services in the African American community. The churches were full of people who they influenced and mentored along the way. They were the fabric of the lives of so many people, including myself. And I just want to say that what you're worrying about now is relevant now, but it's going to be irrelevant soon. And so under this notion of please keep your power, keep your confidence, keep your pride, keep your ego intact, keep your self-esteem, because it's ladies like these ladies who create a legacy because how they lived every day. They were women of faith, they cared about family, they cared about community, they gave their very best. And then lastly, in closing, Mrs. Ford's some of her last words were, and this was really to my wife, who's the oldest sister, to keep calm, stay calm. Because there are people who have gone through things much worse than this. This is what Lena's mother said. People have gone through things much worse than this, and they survived. They did okay. So keep calm. And then my mother, in some of her, parting words, the lady who lived in gratitude, her last words were just, thank you, I appreciate everything. So stay calm, don't give away your power, be your very self, your best self, and just know that I appreciate everything as well. Thank you all. Good to be here.